In this clip, we're gonna talk about pricing secrets for your product or service. But before we do, don't forget to follow us, whatever channel you are on, or subscribe, whatever it is exactly. Follow, subscribe, whatever, if you like tips on entrepreneurship, business, and growth. So let's talk about pricing. So pricing, first and foremost, is the number one lever you can pull when it comes to growing your business faster, right? If you price your product at $99 versus $1 million, what's better? The $1 million probably, right? The question is, well, who's gonna actually pay the $1 million? So you have to think about your audience first. So in terms of pricing secrets, the first thing I would say is this: I would almost never charge hourly. If you are gonna charge hourly, set your hourly rate like really, really high, maybe $5,000 an hour, $10,000. That's a really high amount, because at the end of the day, it's hard to scale when you are just charging by the hour. If you're by yourself, if you have a team, sure, you can scale, you can delegate things to your team, sure, right? But for yourself, you probably wanna make sure that you are charging not on hourly, but maybe you're charging on like an annual contract or a monthly contract, or ideally you're charging on value, right? So, if you help a company make $1 million and they pay you, let's say they pay you $100,000, so 10% of that, is that fair? Sure, right? Most people are gonna say that. So if you think about it that way, that's gonna help you in terms of pricing. And what I can say is this: in the past, people would be like, how much do you charge per hour? The problem with charging per hour is you're getting scrutinized for every single hour. And they're looking at you as like, oh, you didn't do that much for this hour, you didn't do that much for this hour. They're tracking you on time as well. It almost feels like you're kind of trapped, right? So that's how I felt in the past, and that's why I think you gotta get away from charging from the hourly game. So the book I would recommend is called Win Without Pitching, and that allows you to charge based on value. If you can get them in the mindset of saying, hey, you know what? I wanna work with you for the long term. I don't wanna just do, I want our incentives to be aligned. So if we do a really good job for you, then at the end of the day, you pay us a percentage of it. Or maybe there's accelerators. Maybe they pay you $5,000 a month, and then if you hit a certain goal, maybe they give you an additional 10% bonus, something like that. You can get really creative with the deals that you're doing, and you don't want to just kind of set your pricing based on how a competitor is doing it. You don't want to do that. Don't copy your competitors. I remember back in the day, all these companies would just copy other companies charging $49 a month or $99 a month on the software as a service world, and you find out that those prices are not sustainable. At the end of the day, if you charge based on value, it's good for both sides, and then you're going to work harder because you're going to be paid a much harder or much higher amount. If you don't pitch it based on value, you're going to be seen as a commodity versus everybody else. Here's another secret for you. One of the reasons why I'm so focused on creating content and doing the marketing school podcast, doing these YouTube videos, or even writing content or speaking at conferences as well, is to build a brand, to build credibility. Because what happens at the end of the day, if I think about the business that we get, 50% comes from the content that we create. 35% comes from networking or speaking. And then, we have 15% that comes from podcasts. So almost all of that is coming from inbound that we're creating, right? We don't do much outbound. In fact, we get so much traffic that we've weaponized that traffic to make it go, become our outbound machine. Building a brand for yourself that's very defensible, that is your moat. And if you think about the Oprahs of the world, you think about the Tony Robbins of the world, you think about the Kobe Bryants or the Michael Jordans of the world. They have built very big brands, and they were very good at what they did initially, and then they built businesses around that because they have a brand. People like to do business with people, or people like to do business with a logo, like they want to do business with a brand. And that's how you can command premium prices. That's how you can defend yourself, because when people come to you, it's like, why should I pay you that much when everyone else is charging this much? Sure, the other people might be better, but they want to work with a brand that they trust, a brand that they know. So that's another pricing secret for you. You can command a premium if you create a brand. If you think about this, here's an example for you. The power of brand. Well, Shaq. So Shaq, basketball player, played for the Lakers. He played for a bunch of other teams, but what he did was he started seeing a bunch of companies that he liked. So Ring, the doorbell company, he reached out to the CEO and said, hey, look, I'd like to be your spokesperson, and I'd like to have some equity in the company. And that's the power of brand. And then Ring actually sold for over $1 billion to Amazon. And that's the power of brand. And then you think about Michael Jordan, the greatest basketball player of all time. Guess what? He owns the Charlotte Bobcats now. That is, again, the power of brand, the power of relationships, right? You think about the Clippers. Who owns the Clippers? Steve Ballmer from Microsoft. He used to be CEO of Microsoft. I'm sure the power of a bunch of other owners wanted to bid, but he got in there because he's Steve Ballmer, and his name, his brand had some pull around that, and is able to get him the things that he wants. Give you another example. Warren Buffett. He's able to do deals very creatively because people know him to be a guy you can trust. a guy that has integrity, right? That is his brand. And people come to us all the time. Eric, I love the stuff that you're talking about. I love the way you approach things. Like, I want to work with you. And that's the power of brand, because people come to you, and eventually, because I'm putting all these deposits, like making this content right now, I'm putting deposits in. Eventually, I'm going to be able to withdraw those deposits at the end of the day, and I'll be able to cash in on them. Just thinking about that long term, like I mentioned earlier, you think long term when you think about, like, when you work with a customer, it's not just I'm going to work with you on a monthly basis or hourly basis. I'm going to try to work with you on value. I'm going to try to work with you for a couple years. And if you can get them to sign an annual contract, here's the other thing: your cash flows are going to be protected more. Okay. And then it's much more predictable that way, because if everyone comes in on different contracts, your cash flow is not that predictable. And all of a sudden, like, let's say a bunch of people leave you, and you're gonna have to end up either firing a couple people or reducing your expenses significantly. So that's the other problem. Like, if you don't protect yourself from a pricing standpoint, you're gonna be in trouble. The other thing I'll add to that is every single year, you should be reevaluating your pricing. Like, should you be increasing your pricing for your customers? A lot of SaaS companies, software as a service companies, do that. A lot of services companies do that too, because their expenses have increased. They've added a lot of overhead. So they might take their prices from $500 a month to $750 a month to $1,000 the next year. It gets more and more expensive. Why do you think the greatest law firms in the world are so expensive? It's because, as they've gotten more and more popular, more and more demand, they have to increase their prices because to kind of match that, right? Their ability to fulfill is kind of diminished, so they have to increase their prices, right? Obviously, if they had no clients, they have to decrease their prices, but that's what you're able to do when you build yourself to a certain level, and you just gotta constantly reevaluate your prices, because if you don't, you're gonna be left behind. There are a couple resources I wanna share with you as well. So earlier we talked about the book Win Without Pitching. And there's a company called Profitwell. Patrick Campbell, he has creates a lot of content around pricing, and I think it's really smart. So for them, they've created a brand around teaching people how to price the best, and that's all they do. That's their brand. They give software away for free. That is their brand. That's how they go about doing things, and they build everything inbound at the end of the day. So those are just a couple things around pricing in general. Those are kind of pricing secrets. The other thing I'll say too is, around pricing, the more you can bundle things together, the better, right? So instead of saying you're just gonna get a software thing, if you say I'm gonna give you this software, I'm gonna give you this other software, and I'm gonna give you some kind of supporting things around that, you can bundle it together to make it this new offer. So constantly think about tweaking your offer, right? In marketing, you might give people an ebook, you might give people like maybe like a video or something like that. But if you can bundle like an offer together, that's gonna be much more enticing for people to come in, and it's gonna help you grow for the long term. All right, so I do want to share a story around pricing mistake that I made in the past. And so here's a pricing story for me. What I did the early days when I took over Single Grain was I looked at another agency. They were charging $1,000 a month for the services that we were offering. So what I did was I was like, oh, yeah, we can charge a little more than that. So I anchored at $1,000 because I looked at other agencies that were charging around that amount. I'm like, okay, we're gonna do $1,500 a month. And I thought like I was the bomb. I was awesome. And we picked up a bunch of clients, but then they're all like locked in at $1,500 a month. And then a year later, I reevaluated my pricing, and this is for our paid media services, and we started charging $3,500 a month, started charging $5,000 a month, or a percentage of ad spend. And people were okay with it. Like, you increase the prices and people are okay with it because they knew that they were getting a lot of value from the service. So that's basically what happened. And from there, even to this day, we kind of hover around that range, but I think we're even thinking about increasing it even more because we're adding so much more value, and we think we're different, and we've also commanded brand presence too. So looking at this over the years, taking over Single Grain, I didn't have much of a brand at the time personally. Now it's grown to like a decent size, and then also the work that we're doing now is so much more high level, especially if we work with like a SaaS company or like a big tech company. We have a lot of those clients, right? We are able to command higher prices because we specialize in that area and we have a brand in that area. And also we instead of doing month-to-month contracts, we now do annual contracts. So all these learnings have been condensed into kind of where we are now, and it's allowed us to continue to scale and to continue to be the company that we want to be. So pricing, again, to reiterate, I've given you a lot of stories, given you a lot of tips to do, but it is the biggest lever that you can pull, and I recommend that you spend at least a couple hours a year thinking about it, probably even a little more than that, because it is going to affect your bottom line and how quickly you're going to be able to grow. So don't stop here on your pricing learnings. I have another video for you on something similar. Check it out. And also, don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, and leave a comment below if you agree, disagree with me, whatever your thoughts are around pricing. We'll see you tomorrow.